Good morning, I'm Sharaad Kuttan and welcome to BFM's Morning Headlines. It's the 17th of December and we look at the newspapers as we always do. This is the new Straits Times and it's got good news for you. It's a good 2013. It's a look back at the year in terms of our finances and economic well-being. The numbers are there: 220 billion, 435,000 new jobs created, 195 projects launched under the 2010 NKEAS. Always a mouthful for me. Now, these are just numbers, but what is the real story? The real story really seems to be appearing on the other newspapers. The front page of Sinar Harian, tak perlu naik tol, no reason to raise tolls. This is an interesting story because it has here, as you quote here, you can tell, comes from the National Council of Professors. And that's a fairly conservative organization, but they are saying that in fact the government need not allow tolls to go up. And as my colleague Julian said this morning, that these concessionaires have in fact been reaping obscene profits, and there's absolutely no reason for them to now get even more. The newspaper notes that the government has in fact the powers to negotiate with the concessionaires and get a better deal for the public. The Sun and the Malay Mail both also provide the story about the KL assessment rate hike, and there they have this. See, it's only 65,000 objection letters. Now that might seem a lot to you, but because there are many more homeowners in the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur. Well, this is a story that the Malay Mail carried some a week ago or so, noting that there was a low level of formal objections. Now, the Malay Mail actually taken that story further, and you see rather dramatic images here of MPs from the Federal Territory, Teresa Kok here, and Nurul Izzah and such. And that's our unelected mayor, the unelected mayor of Kuala Lumpur. They're calling for calm. Now, the police have said that they are going to take action against the protesters. I don't know why. It seems to be it went off peacefully, and the question really is, should the response of government and the police be one of trying to dampen people's civic involvement? I'm not sure. I ask you. Now, the Edge Financial Daily has a story there, a statement by Idris Jala. He's, of course, in cabinet and heads Pemandu. What's interesting is that he says he's not a politician. I'm not quite sure how he can be not a politician if he's supporting the government of the day. But at any rate, he's the main public relations guy for the government, and he's saying that on the question of education, we should not be too political now approach it. There should be a bipartisan approach to solving education problems. Now, the Star has the contest for the MCA that's coming up at the end of the week, and there it is. It's a crowded field. Two's company, three's a crowd, they say. So these are the three men. He's the youngest of the lot, and he's a bit of a dark horse, but he's doing very well, apparently, gathering support, having meetings with fairly senior members of the party appearing at them, which is gives you an indication of how they're going to be voting or who they want others to vote for. So there. And what's interesting in this paper is on page 35, buried is an international story about a law that was passed in the Indian state of Maharashtra, and it was supported by an organization called the Blind Faith Eradication Committee. Now, I love this. I think that's something we should have in Malaysia. And that's the phrase of the day, blind faith. Right? So we should oppose and eradicate as much blind faith as possible in this country, especially with regard to politicians. So now, speaking of faith, the Malay papers go with the continuing story of the murdered Hang Islamic enforcement chief. Now, those people alleged to be behind the murder, the Tuan Harun sect, they have rather been charged in court. Now, if you remember the images of Tuan Harun, the man at the center of the cult and alleged to have also made millions from defrauding investors and such. Now, he's in a wheelchair. And when I first saw the images, and you see many of those images of him, he's looking rather thin and stunned, and apparently he's had a stroke, and so and he can't speak, and so whether he's fit for trial is perhaps a question for his lawyers to put across to the judge. But anyway, there they are. That's him his second wife and 2 of his followers. And finally, we end with Harian Metro. Guaranteed to put a smile on your face if you like black magic and domestic abuse. So there you have it, a woman who tried to be helpful and fill the shoes of some other woman, so therefore, a replacement wife is the headline. Unfortunately, she was turned into, or allegedly, into a sex slave. So that sort of rounds up our morning headlines today, the 17th of December. I'm Sharaad Kuttan, BFM 89.9.